Gertie and her goats. Gertie and her goats. Fade in. Exterior rural field morning. Gertie and her 3 pet goats live on a small farm. Gertie is beaming as she leads her goats across an open field with green pasture. The field is bounded by wire mesh fencing about 7 feet high.
Come on, my little darlings.
The goats bleat enthusiastically as they follow Gertie toward a gate. Each has an ear tag with a name written on marker pen. Trevor, Dexter, Gary.
You've been such good boys, clearing out this field.
Gertie claps her hands to applaud her goats. The goats bleat to show they understand.
Yes, you have. So, Mummy has a nice big reward for you.
The goats bleat with even more excitement as Gertie reaches the gate, then unclips its chain and flings it open with a flourish.
Ta-da! More weeds!
The goats' bleating reaches fever pitch as they charge into a field that contrasts starkly with the first. This new field is full of weeds, thistles, and blackberries, with some scrappy trees as well as decaying car body among the mess. However, the goats' rampage is interrupted by 2 toots from somewhere off-screen of a car horn. Gertie looks around. Pan 2, a gleaming phallic car parked at the field's edge, just outside a mesh fence that runs along a gravel road. Mr. Priggins is sitting in the driver's seat with his window open. He's a middle-aged gent of generous girth, neatly attired in a tweed jacket and silk cravat.
Hey, Gertie!
Mr. Priggins whistles at her like she's a dog and waves her over to him.
Over here!
Back to Gertie. Her face drops, her shoulders slump. Reluctantly, she closes the gate and plods towards the car. She stops inside her high mesh fence, resting a hand on the wire. Mr. Priggins continues to sit in his car, leaning out his window.
Morning, Mr. Priggins. What brings you down my way?
Blackberries, Gertie. Some big outbreaks are threatening my prize-winning begonias.
Ooh, nasty things. Blackberries.
And it's only 3 weeks to the annual begonia festival.
The festival wouldn't be the same without your begonias, Mr. Priggins.
My thoughts precisely.
You gonna dig out the blackberries?
Too hard. Chemical sprays might drift onto my begonias and damage their petals. They're delicate, you know.
So, I'm guessing you'll be wanting my boys for a weeding job?
I'll pay you cash.
Let me see what they think.
Gertie turns heel and walks back toward her goats, leaving a puzzled Mr. Priggins open-mouthed in his car. Cut to black. Exterior, Priggins' backyard, afternoon. Gertie's 3 goats are inside a 7-foot-high wire mesh fence, enclosing several outbreaks of blackberries. They're happily munching the blackberries. Outside this temporary enclosure, Mr. Priggins is watching Gertie use pliers to expertly tie off a final piece of wire to secure the fencing. The mesh is a lattice of wire rectangles that are about 12 inches wide by 6 inches high, not diamond pattern, cyclone mesh. In the garden, directly outside the improvised enclosure, are numerous beds of begonias coming into flower.
Promise me, Mr. Priggins, that if any of my boys gets caught up trying to climb up over this fence, you'll let them down gently.
They won't bite me, will they?
They prefer the taste of blackberries.
Do they prefer blackberries over begonias?
Oh, they love begonias. To a goat's brain, they're like cocaine.
Well, they better not try breaking out of this cage.
Relax. I've had plenty of practice putting up this mesh around my farm.
You better be right, Gertie. We don't want this to all end in goat curry.
You better be joking, Mr. Priggins, 'cause my goats ain't for eatin'.
Nor are my begonias.
They glare at each other. Neither is backing down. Cut to black. Exterior, window into Priggins' dining room, night. Sound system plays music in background as Mr. Priggins carries a large steaming pot into his warmly lit dining room. He's no longer wearing his jacket and has changed his cravat to a darker silk. A brightly colored cashmere sweater covers most of his bulging stomach. He is humming along with his sound system, which can be playing any comic goat-related song, such as The Lonely Goatherd from The Sound of Music. Interior, Priggins' dining room, night. The dining table is lavishly set for a confirmed bachelor, including candles, silver cutlery, serving platters, condiment dishes, and a lace napkin. Mr. Priggins carefully places the steaming pot in front of his single white plate. He reaches for his phone and turns up the music on his sound system, just in time to yodel a chorus.
Lady o me, lady go doo.
Mr. Priggins spoons rice onto the middle of his plate, then uses tongs to add roti bread on the side. He reaches for a ladle and looks longingly at the steaming pot.
Priggins, you truly are a master chef.
He plunges the ladle into what looks like goat curry. Zoom in on pot of curry in 3 sudden steps that are synchronized with 3 sudden screeching violin effects like those in Hitchcock's Psycho. Back to Mr. Priggins happily serving himself the curry while humming and singing.
Goaty alley alley loo hoo hoo.
Mr. Priggins finishes ladling the curry onto his rice, places his napkin on his lap, breaks off a piece of roti bread, then scoops some curry and rice into his mouth. As he goes to chew his first mouthful, his eyes closed in ecstasy, the sound of a distressed bleat from a goat is heard from off-screen. Startled, Mr. Priggins opens his eyes. He looks down at his plate and roughly gulps down his mouthful in one swallow.
What the
He turns off the music. An even more distressed bleat is heard from off-screen. Mr. Priggins jumps to his feet, clutching his lace napkin. He goes to the window facing his rear garden. He strains to see into the darkened yard as a more sustained bleat is heard. His face changes to annoyance as he realizes what is going on outside. He throws down his napkin and stomps towards the door. Exterior, Priggins' backyard, night. Mr. Priggins shines his phone light on a distressed goat, Trevor, bleeding with his head stuck through a wire mesh rectangle about halfway up the enclosure.
Oh, you stupid frickin' bastard. Get down off that fence.
Trevor, the goat, continues to bleat as he tries to extract himself. Mr. Priggins makes some lame swatting actions around the goat, but he clearly does not want to touch him.
Oh, you beastly thing. You will never taste my begonias, Trevor. Just give up now.
Gary the goat attempts to climb the fence, bleeding away.
No, this is too much. Gertie, you have to get over here right away.
Dexter the goat joins the chorus of bleats in the mass breakout attempt. Mr. Priggins starts flapping aimlessly around his garden in a panic. Exterior, rural back roads, night. A pickup truck streaks down a gravel road with dust billowing behind. It skids around a corner, then hammers up another gravel road into the night. Interior, speeding pickup truck, night. Gertie is at the steering wheel, her face set in grim determination. Exterior, Priggins' front yard and driveway, night. From off-screen, the sounds of manic goat bleating and indistinct yelling are spilling from the backyard into the stillness of the front yard. Also off-screen is the distinct growl from a pickup truck that is quickly increasing in volume. The pickup streaks into shot, charges up the driveway, then skids to a stop. Like an action woman, Gertie bursts from her vehicle and sprints towards the backyard. Exterior, Priggins' backyard, night. Gertie dashes to the enclosure, where the first goat is still stuck in the mesh amid a chorus of goat bleating. Mr. Priggins flaps frantically.
It's okay, my darlings. Mummy's here.
Gertie deftly releases the first goat from the mesh.
There you go, Trevor. All better now.
Trevor the goat bleats his relief at being freed. The other 2 goats settle and move back from the mesh.
Oh my God, those freaks are crazier than a bag of feral cats.
Gertie whips out 3 large dog leashes from her pocket. She looks threatening. Mr. Priggins looks wary and steps back.
Freaks? What sort of man can't untangle a goat?
Whoa, Gertie, what are you doing with those leashes?
I'm taking my goats back, buddy.
Gertie starts twisting open 3 tie wires on the mesh.
But the job's not done.
Trevor could have died because you can't handle your goats.
Well, I'm not paying you for a job half done.
Fine. Just pay me for the fencing and we'll call it quits.
I shall not be paying you 1 red cent after the trauma I've just suffered.
But this enclosure cost me.
Well, funny thing about cash deals, Gertie, there's no paper trail.
If you cheat me, Mr. Priggins, karma will take care of you.
Yeah, right. Karma. Pfft, I'm so scared.
Gertie finishes undoing the tie wires, opens the mesh, and steps inside the goat enclosure.
Have it your way, pal. There. No more nasty man. We're going home now.
Gertie starts gently clipping the leashes around their necks. Mr. Priggins shakes his head at Gertie like she's psycho.
Damn straight I'll have it my way.
Then you better not come near me or my goats again.
Or what?
You really don't listen, do you?
To black. Fade in. Exterior gravel road along farm boundary, first light. The menacing sight of Mr. Priggins' car creeping slowly along a gravel road with only parking lights on. He's towing a wire cage on a trailer. The parking lights are soon cut. Seconds later, the car pulls quietly off the road. right next to a boundary fence of Gertie's farm. Mr. Priggins emerges from his car dressed in a black jumpsuit that emphasizes his bulging bulk. His face is smeared with camouflage paint. He's wearing a black beret, black gloves, black slippers, and his cravat is now black silk. In one hand are 3 large dog leashes. He tiptoes up the 7-foot-high fence. He peers through the dim light. He spots the 3 goats lying around the car body in the weedy field. He nods to himself. Good timing. They're probably sleeping. Mr. Priggins looks at the top of the mesh fence. He gives a dismissive snort to indicate how hard can it be. He drapes the 3 leashes around his neck and straightens his back. He grabs hold of the mesh high up, then places a foot into a lower rectangle of the mesh and begins to climb. Interior, Gertie's bedroom, first light. Gertie is peacefully asleep in her bedroom. Her bedclothes are printed with little goats, including her pillow. The lampshade by her bed displays a pastoral scene of a goat ideal.
Help!
Gertie sits bolt upright in bed as one hand stabs at the switch on her bedside goat lamp. The lamp's light reveals her pajamas are printed with little goats, and above her bed are 3 large frame photos of her goats. Exterior, Gertie's back deck, dawn twilight. Gertie bursts out her back door, wearing only her goat pajamas. Her goats are bleeding from somewhere off screen.
Help me! I'm stuck!
Gertie spots something large stuck in one of her fences. She pulls her boots and runs out into the field. Exterior, boundary fence, dawn, twilight. The goats make it to the fence just before Gertie does. She has her phone out and shines its torch on the problem. The whole long fence is wobbling under the weight of Mr. Priggins hanging upside down with each leg stuck through a rectangle in the mesh. His ample butt is facing Gertie through the wire. Gertie has to try hard not to laugh.
Mr. Priggins! So lovely to see you this way.
Oh, get me down, goddamn you, Gertie!
Gertie looks at her goats, whose bleats sound like laughs.
Never figured you for a goat rustler.
You forced me to do this.
Me? Now you really are talking through your ass.
This is no laughing matter. I'm struggling to breathe.
Then talk fast.
We have to work something out or my begonias might never recover.
Fine. My boys and I will finish the job, but you're going to pay me up front. Plus interest.
Deal. As long as the job gets done, I'll add 20%.
I don't mean that sort of interest, Mr. Priggins.
What? Not enough?
My goats get half an hour in your begonias.
What? No!
Slow motion series of shots. As no continues, Mr. Priggins' body convulses upwards as though jolted by an electric surge. In the torchlight, his crazed eyes, camouflaged face, and roaring mouth rise like a monster from the outside of the fence. A long section of boundary fence goes into a death wobble as Priggins convulses, now stuck upright in the mesh. A terrified Gertie spins around and dives toward her goats with her arms out to push them away. The whole length of boundary fence comes crashing down, with Priggins riding it face first into the ground. The impact causes bits of dry goat feces and ground litter from inside the field to fly out in all directions from underneath the bulk of Priggins. Gertie's body is lying motionless on the ground. The top edge of the fence missed her by a mere whisker, but her goats are safely behind her, peering down at her body. End slow motion. Back to Mr. Priggins, lying face first on the ground as debris settles around him. His body is not moving. One of the goats bleats at Gertie. She slowly opens her eyes.
You all good?
All her goats bleat. They are okay. She nods back, still in shock. A wobbly Gertie stands up and brushes herself down. She straightens up and walks over to Priggins. She stoops and feels his neck for a pulse. She checks again.
Well, boys, look like you're in for a big blowout on the begonias.
Deliriously happy goat bleating breaks out. Cut to black. Roll credits. Insert photos during credits. The 3 goats are variously pictured in an ecstatic frenzy eating begonias in Mr. Priggins' garden. Each goat is wearing a different colored silk cravat, and the names on their ear tags are easily visible. Trevor, Dexter, Gary. A joyous Gertie appears in several photos celebrating with her goats. A morose Mr. Priggins is eventually pictured alive in a neck brace with a cravat. The end.